is our Barbara is our guest today, Barbara Mayer. She was born in Santa Monica, California in 1954. At the age of 22 months, she contracted polio while living in Phoenix, and it affected her from the waist down, and she ended up wearing a long leg brace on her right leg and using crutches as needed. She was selected as the March of Dimes poster child for Maricopa County in 1956. After attending public school, she received her nursing degree from the University of California at San Francisco, and she began her 40-year career working as acute care hospital in Santa Barbara. Half of her time was caring for adult medical surgical patients, and the other half was nursing education. And now this is great. In 1997, she was named Nurse of the Year for the Cottage Healthcare System in 2008. When grandchildren were in her near future, she and her husband moved to Georgia, which we greatly are glad that she's here. She continued to work part-time at Brunel University in the skills and simulation labs, and she joined APPA in 2009 and served on the APPA board from 2014 to 2022. And anyway, I think she can go on now and tell her retirement, how she spent her life, and how she's faring in retirement. So you all welcome Barbara.
Uh, thank you, Rita. Actually, that kind of made me a little tired listening to all of that. Okay, I am going to attempt to share my screen.
Well,
Can you see that?
yes, we can.
Okay. That's good. Hang on, I'm trying to get it.
Go to slideshow.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, this is the first time I've done this on Zoom, so I did have a practice run through with my sister, so I'm hoping everything goes well. Anyway, as Rita said, I got polio at the age of 22 months in September of 1954, and I got my braces. I actually started out wearing 2 leg braces. I got those braces on April 12th, 1955, which ironically was the day that it was announced that the polio vaccine was safe and effective. So the next year in 56, I was selected the poster child for March of Dimes for Maricopa County in Phoenix. And so there I am. I don't remember too much about it, but I do remember having to go to special events. And here I am sitting on the Arizona governor's desk. He's giving me money to donate. This was Governor Ernest McFarland. I don't remember him at all, but I remember that poodle skirt that I'm wearing. I loved that poodle skirt. And you can see by this time I was only wearing 1 brace on my right leg. And here's another March of Dimes donation. I think I was supposed to be looking at the guy or the check, but I was kind of a ham, and so of course I'm looking at the camera. And then let's see. This is the reason why we moved to Georgia. This picture was taken about 8 years ago. My granddaughters Salem and Blair, and they live in Decula, so just a little ways away. And as most of you have experienced, either with weakness, splints, here are some of the braces that I wore. starting out with metal and leather and progressing to basically hybrid, and now I'm in mostly plastic, but I still have the metal bars, which, boy, they're cold, cold, cold in the winter. Trying to figure out how to uh, develop something to heat the bars in the winter and cool them off in the summer, but that hasn't happened yet. And as Rita said, I went to public school and then I'd been in and out of the hospital so much. And I remember thinking, I could do this better. So I originally was going to go to medical school until I found out all the education and training that was involved with that. So I ended up going to nursing school at University of California, San Francisco. And I worked full time, and in fact, for 12 years, I worked two jobs, being the overdoer that I am. I worked full time at the hospital, and then I taught part time in the nursing program at the local city college. And we moved to, we moved to Georgia, as I said, in 2008. My son had just gotten married to a Georgia peach, and so I knew they weren't going to move to California, so we had to do something desperate, and we packed up and moved here. Plus, we realized if we wanted to retire before we were 85, we had to get out of California. And I had found the Polio Health International. Wasn't called that at the time, but the early 90s I had joined Polio Health International, and so I was getting information about post-polio through that organization. And then when we moved here, I had signed up for the conference down at Warm Springs in 2009, and that's when I discovered APPA and met Dr. Strassler and several other people in APPA. So I joined APPA in 2009, and I worked at Bernal part-time until 2013, and just the increasing weakness and problems with post-polio, where I wasn't falling, but I had near falls all the time. And the students were more worried about me than they paid attention to the lesson I was trying to teach them. So it was time to retire, which was fine by me. But I made the big mistake in 2013. The next APPA meeting, I said, "Yippee, I've retired," and I swear within 24 hours, Linda Priest called me and said, "Now that you're retired, wouldn't you like to serve on the APPA board?" And it's kind of hard to pull the handicap card when everybody else is in your same situation. So I did join the APPA board, and I really enjoyed that time. I served as secretary, and I'll tell you, the board does a great job in getting information out there and the resources. So I just encourage everybody to think about helping APPA out by serving on the board. That's how we hear from the members, what can we do? What will help the members our most? Okay, and then let's see. What's my next slide here? Oh, yeah. Well, I'll talk about this slide in just a minute. But by retiring, I was able to pursue my interest of volunteering, which you already know I joined the APPA board. I also, when I moved here in '08, I started to volunteer at the local hospital, mainly to check out the hospital because I I knew I had to work, and so I was thinking maybe I could get a part-time job at the hospital. But it turned out the Burnell position worked out better for me. Uh, but beyond volunteering, and I'll talk more about that. Also interested in travel and music, and when I so I started volunteering at the local hospital in '09, and I decided to volunteer on the oncology unit. That was an area that I never worked at when I was working, so I kind of picked that area on purpose so I wouldn't feel the need to like become a nurse again. Uh, and I just feel that it's really important to give back to people who need help. And throughout my career, I was helped a lot by volunteers, and I have seen how volunteers in healthcare can really help the patients in a difficult situation. So that's why I picked the hospital. And I would volunteer 3 hours a week, 3 hours on Thursday afternoon, Thursday morning. And so, 3 hours a week is really nothing. And every time I thought I had a bad week or I had some aches and pains, and oh, woe with me, all I had to do was walk up onto that oncology unit and was very grateful for how well off I was. In 2018, I had to transition from the oncology unit because it was just too much walking for me, and walking was becoming more and more difficult. And 2018 was when I got my scooter. Uh, and so I actually moved to outpatient oncology. So I'm working with the oncology patient navigators at the hospital, and I put together patient information packets, and I make some follow-up calls to patients. And so that still allows me to keep my nursing brain cells active, which is my goal. And think so I don't quite lose everything I learned. Okay, and I've done some volunteering at my church. Uh, anyway, I would just suggest that to anyone, whether it's 1 hour a week or more, whether it's the hospital, your church, the library. Most studies that I've read, both professional studies and articles in AARP, talk about the importance of senior citizens volunteering. That helps us to keep our minds active and our bodies as active as possible. But what I really like to do is travel. And here I am with my daughter, and you notice there are a couple penguins there. Put this in for Joe. These are actually Galapagos penguins, and we're at the equator. And it's only in the Galapagos that there are penguins. And they really monitor visitors to the Galapagos. You can't go anywhere without an official designated naturalist. And the naturalist can have up to 16 people at a time. but they just make sure that nobody's feeding the animals or touching them or destroying their habitat or anything like that. And you would think, being at this equator, that the water would be nice and warm. It was cold. It was about 72 degrees. And so we both rented wetsuits. They weren't, they were just short sleeves and like shorts on the bottom. And because my right leg is so small, it didn't really help me that much. That water was cold. But what was nice, because they limit the number of visitors, the animals are not really afraid of people. And so snorkeling could have the penguins fly right up to the mast. And the challenge really was not to touch them because they're so cute. And I saw blue-footed dodo birds, booby birds, and seals. Seals would swim right up to my mask and almost give me an Eskimo kiss. It was really a trip of a lifetime. It was difficult physically. One funny incident happened. Of course, the boat that we were taking this cruise around the Galapagos Islands was anchored offshore, so we had to take a raft with a motor on it out to the boat. Of course, there was really no place to sit except on the sides, and basically hung on for dear life. And as we went from the raft to the boat's going this way, the raft's going that way. Well, every able-bodied person was able to just hop off just fine. So I waited to the end, and they got some crew out, and now the crew only speaks Spanish, and I know enough Spanish to get myself in trouble, but there was one crew member had each limb. One had my right arm, one the left arm, one my right leg, one the left leg, and everybody was trying to get me on board, but all in different directions. It took us a couple days, and I'm trying to remember, how do I say feet? I can't remember. Anyway, it all worked out. The crew was great. I basically told them the best I could what I needed, and they really helped out. I couldn't go on some of the hikes. When I asked the guide naturalist, his name was Fabian, I said, how long is this hike? Oh, half a mile. I thought, well, at the time I could do a half a mile. I said, is it level? And he said, oh yes, it's level. It's level. Well, we get halfway through and there are boulders in the middle of the pathway. That's when I learned my definition of level and even is a lot different than people who live outside the United States. There is also a town that my daughter and I stayed at, and she contacted the place and said, do you have any rooms on the first floor? And no, the first room, our first rooms are on what they call the first floor, was one floor up. Okay, no elevator. I thought, well, I'll just take my time and I'll make it up. Well, the person she was communicating with neglected to say there was a whole flight of stairs up to the lobby, but nobody thinks about that. So here we are. My daughter and I we're in Ecuador. We're standing on the equator here. So I'm in the northern hemisphere on the right, and my daughter's in the southern hemisphere on the left. It was very interesting. Oh, by the way, you weigh 1 kilogram less at the equator because you're farther away from the center of the earth. Unfortunately, your mass stays the same, so my pants still didn't fit. And here I am. This was in 2018. My husband and I, we'd been talking and planning for years to have a big trip to celebrate our 30th wedding anniversary. And we actually took it in our 31st year of being married. But we went to Europe, and here we are in Amsterdam. And my husband found this wheelchair that weighed 19 pounds. And so that wheelchair went with us everywhere. And that worked out pretty good. And there are definitely challenges traveling through Europe in with a disability, mobility disability. And I wrote it all up. Let's see. In this APPA newsletter article, goes into a lot more detail about my travels through Europe. And this was in the issue Summer 2018, Volume 31, Issue 2. And it's just basically here in the United States, with the ADA law, the environment has to be or needs to be, is supposed to be accommodating us, where in every place outside of the U.S., South America, Europe, the disabled person is expected to accommodate the environment. So I was expecting a few challenges, but having the wheelchair helped. Not too many people take pictures of toilets on their vacation, but I really liked the European handicapped toilets. These handlebars would fold up against the wall, so if you didn't need the handlebars, they were out of the way. And right there, you got your toilet paper, and the button to flush it was on the outside of one of the handles. And I need something to push up to get me off the toilet. So I like this style a lot better than any toilet I see in the U.S. The problem was it wasn't unusual that the handicapped toilet was down a flight of stairs. Now, why that made any sense to anybody, I'll never know. But I just really had to plan ahead. Excuse me. And my 65-year-old bladder had other ideas of mine most of the time. And also, a lot of the bathrooms, the handicapped bathrooms were separate from the regular public bathrooms. They were much larger, usually always very clean, great. The problem was they were locked, and who has the key? And in fact, when we stopped in Strasbourg in France, there's the handicapped bathroom off to the side, great, doors locked. I don't speak French. Where's the key? Fortunately, our guide was with us. Well, she had to go down a flight of stairs to the public bathrooms, get the key from the attendant down there, come up to unlock the door for me. So glad she was there. Here I am in one of the plazas. I really don't remember which one this is because they kind of all look alike. But I put this in because if you look at the ground, it's cobblestone. It's actually pretty new cobblestone, but the surface areas were a bit challenging, and I had to be careful with my back, and my husband was real good about finding ways to navigate a bumpy road, and found out going backwards over really bumpy areas worked out the best. This is in Vienna. I just put this in because I really like this. They're famous for this Ferris wheel. And I thought, oh, look, those are big compartments there. Number of people can fit in each compartment. I'll just wheel my wheelchair right onto right inside. I don't even have to get up. Oh no, the door was too narrow for my wheelchair, so I had to park my wheelchair and walk in. Here I am at the top of what's called the Danube Tower, and that's the Danube River behind us. And this I was able to stay in my wheelchair and take the elevator to the top. And you can see it's a little windy there. But we were also able, both of my husband and my ancestors immigrated from the Bavaria region in southern Germany. So we were able to spend some time there reconnecting with our motherlands, and so that was good. And when I got back from Europe, and this is again in 2018, it was obvious to me, actually it was obvious quite a ways before we went to Europe, that I really need hand controls. And I probably should have gotten them 20 years before I did, but I was driving with a left foot accelerator, and my left leg wasn't quite strong enough to move from the accelerator to the brake, so I would use my left hand to move my leg. But family said I couldn't do that anymore, and so I bought a converted van, and here are my hand controls. And really, I should have done that years before because it just makes driving a lot easier. Let's see what's here. So with my left hand, I operate the accelerator and the brake. And let me go back. Oh, well, I guess I'm not going to go back. What I didn't show was the knob on the steering wheel, which I operate with my right hand. And that was the biggest challenge because I got this converted van, and it's a heavy vehicle, and it really took some getting used to just controlling the car with one hand. My right arm to this day, if I'm doing a lot of turning, I have to kind of shake it out and regroup. So also in 2018, I got my scooter. So in about 6 weeks' time, I bought a new vehicle, a converted van. I now know more about ramps than I ever wanted to. And I got my scooter, and I got hand controls. And for the hand controls, I knew I needed hand controls. Dr. Strasser said I needed hand controls. I thought I could just go and said, put on hand controls. Oh, no, not that at all. So I had to get I had to get a prescription from Dr. Strasser. Then I had to go to a specially trained occupational therapist that costs $700 and is not covered by Medicare, and complete a 4-hour assessment. And this is the same assessment that is done for people who've had strokes or any other type of brain injuries, or not sure, or limb alterations that may impede their ability to drive. So it was 2 hours of testing. It was check the vision, hearing, your mental acuity. I was very thankful I passed. There were several tests about mental acuity. There was a written test on the traffic signs, and then they checked me for gross motor movements, and then several tests on fine motor movements. And a lot of these tests were time, and it was really quite stressful. And after you do that for 2 hours, then they take you out in a car with hand controls and said, okay, let's drive. And the place I went to was in Marietta. I don't know Marietta. So I'm driving around neighborhoods that I'm unfamiliar with, and son of a gun, all of a sudden here comes an ambulance. It's like, I'm having enough problems and now I have to pull over. Anyway, I did pass. And so, let's see, can I get back? Also checked out different hand grips for my hand controls, and I ended up with this one, and I went with an electronic accelerator, which was recommended to me. Either it's electronic, which I can really drive with one, I can give the car gas with one finger. It doesn't take very much effort at all to accelerate the car. And whereas a mechanical hand control, there's a bar that's fixed right to the accelerator pedal on the floor, and that takes a lot of effort to push that pedal. So this is an electronic accelerator, and then it's a mechanical brake. So if I want to accelerate the car, I just rotate that knob, elongated knob, back toward me. That gives the car some gas. And if I want to brake, I push it forward like I'm pushing the brake with my hand. And it took me about a day or two just to get used to it. I didn't drive on the freeway for about a week until I could get the hang of it. And when I picked up the van that had the hand controls, I had to pay for yet another evaluator with the same occupational therapy company that did my initial evaluation. Just, it's like driver's training in high school. So I had to drive around with him for about an hour just to make sure that I was safe for the roads. So now it works great. And what's nice is, I don't have a picture of it, but when I turn the car on, the hand controls are not engaged. I have to push a button to engage the hand controls. So when when my husband needs to drive the van, he just turns on the car and away it goes. Everything works like normal. And then when I drive the van, when I turn on the car, I have to push the magic button to activate the hand controls. So if anybody has any questions about hand controls, I'll be glad to talk to you later afterwards. Oh, well, my granddaughters are growing up, and I threw this picture in because it's my presentation. This is my younger granddaughter, Blair. When this picture was taken, she was 11. She just recently turned 12, and she's training for the 2028 Olympics
Wow.
in archery. So in July, she won the state of Georgia archery competition for her age group, and in August, she won the state of South Carolina archery competition. So it's pretty amazing. She's practicing hours and hours a week, but she really has, we thought, oh yeah, she, about about 4 years ago, she went to what's called danger camp during the summer, and they did all sorts of things during this camp. And one of the things they did was shoot a crossbow, and she just fell in love with archery. And now her dad has spent buku bucks for all of the equipment, and she has a coach. And anyway, look for her in 2028 Los Angeles Olympics and see what happens. But she is stuck with it so far. Okay, let's see. There she just won the state of Georgia. She's got that medal around her neck. I don't know how many kids she was competing against, but it doesn't really matter. And I put this double rainbow in it just to remind me and to remind all of us that, it's great to be active and do things, but we have to take care of ourselves. Sometimes just have to slow down, appreciate nature, take care of ourselves. I try to do chair yoga a few times a week. Before the pandemic, I was doing pool tai chi. I haven't been back since the pandemic. It's just haven't felt comfortable yet to do that. But just a reminder how important it is to appreciate our surroundings, how lucky we are to live where we are and the resources that we have. I get also monthly massages and acupuncture treatments just to help with keeping what muscles I have left moving and feeling good. And I'm, how important it is to stay social and talking with family and friends. And I try to keep my brain active besides making phone calls to oncology patients when I volunteer. I try to do my daily crossword puzzles and Wordle and Jumble, all those things. Just as with anything, you quit using it, you're going to lose it. And another important activity I do, because I like music so much, my husband and I, we do get season tickets to the Atlanta Symphony, and every time we drive down there I think, oh my goodness, it's so far. It's about an hour and a half from where we live, and oh, the traffic is so bad and blah blah blah. But when we get there, I'm so glad we went, because I just really enjoy music. I'm regenerated by it. And I've also joined the handbell choir at church. So we rehearse once a week, an hour and a half once a week, and we play in the church services once a month. And I'm already sick of Away in the Manger and Hark the Herald the Angels Sings, because we've been practicing those pieces for a couple months now already. So anyway, I'm going to show you my bells in a few minutes. Okay, well, here are the granddaughters today. They actually grew up. Salem's will be 14 next week, and Blair is 12. They're so cute. They're both in middle school, and again, you know, whatever, I would just recommend whatever recharges your batteries. For me, it's being with friends, it's being with family, music, not traveling as much as we used to, but it's nice to look back at pictures where we've been, or we try to watch Rick Steves and all his adventures in Europe. I just would recommend, again, whatever helps you to recharge your batteries and to be grateful to do that activity. And I put this in. I put this in because these are some of the notations that are used in handbell music, and I'll test you on these later. But what I'm going to do, let's see. I'm going to take my background. Okay. I brought home a couple bells. I don't know how familiar you are with handbells. They're mostly in churches. Some schools also offer handbells. Our choir is a 5-octave choir. I'm going to try and move this. So I brought home three bells, and so what most people do, we're assigned 2 notes. So I'm assigned to middle C and B, and which means I also play the accidentals, the flats and sharps. So what I'm going to do now, and you can see there's just a number of special notations that you don't see. Oh no, that's not what I want to do. That you don't see in any other music. Okay. So I'm going to just demonstrate a little bit. One thing that when you play bells, what you have to do is wear gloves so that the oils from your hands don't get on the bells, because that means you have to polish them more. And here I have middle C, and it tells me, it says it's C5, so the notes below this are number 4, and when you go an octave above, you get into 6. So we have a 5-octave choir at my church, and it takes about 13 people to play 60 bells. Now, the people who play the big bass bells, and they're like this big, they, yeah, I don't play those bells, but you know, usually they're only playing one at a time, so they play multiple bells. I've got my 3 or 4 bells, and bells are either made out of brass or tin, and they've got a clapper in here, and we actually are able to rotate the clapper between hard, medium, and soft. So depending on how loud we want to be, we'll rotate the clappers. If you notice I don't know if you can see it, but on my gloves, I have dots on my gloves. That's because you know, we can't stick them on the handles. We don't want to be losing the bells having flying across. So the dots help us to hang on to the bells. And then the sound of the bell, actually, it doesn't come out from the middle, like where the clapper is. It comes out from the sides of the rim of the bell. So when you play the bells, you hang on tight so you don't lose the bell. And then, and you want to do a circular motion, kind of like a backwards bicycle wheel.
Backwards.
And and the idea is pretend like the bell is full of wine and you don't want to spill a drop. So once you flick your wrist, you want to keep the bell upright so that the sound is even. So some people, if they, I don't know if you can tell the difference in that sound, but if I pointed the bell at the audience, they're not going to hear it as well. And then the handles are marked. This is B flat. I have B flat, B, and C. And so when the clapper hits the bell, the sound comes out, and the sound will continue until what we call damp, which you just touch it to your clothing, and that will damp the bell. Or you can touch your glove. So if I was going to play these bells in a row, here's is B flat, B, and C. So there's all sorts of exercises, scales to learn how to play legato. And the music, the bell music looks like piano music, except there's a lot more notes. And when I've been playing as an adult since 1980. And when I first started playing, I had a really hard time just picking out my two little notes. Now I've played for so long, if I sit down at the piano, I have a hard time seeing the rest of the notes. And there's a number of techniques that we can do. There's a technique called thumb damp. So this is, I don't want to be touching the metal part of the bell normally, so it rings out. But thumb damp, I have to use my fingers, makes more of a staccato sound. Or there's what's called ring touch. So you ring it and then you touch it to your shoulder quickly. You notice I'm wearing a sweater vest that added padding. There have been times in the past I've put oven mitts under my bra straps. The lower the bell, the bigger the bell, and the heavier the bell. These bells, I say, weigh about a pound. The bigger it gets, a couple more. The B flats, probably 2 pounds. Maybe they're a pound and a half. But I really like doing this. It's very technical, so it satisfies my left brain, and yet there's a musical element that satisfies my right brain. And we do stand up to play, and you're not supposed to lean against the table when you play, but that's what I do to keep my balance. And that works out pretty good. And I'll tell you, the kiss of death is if you get your bells out of order, because you don't have time to look down and see what you're picking up. You have to feel confident that the bell on the right is my C bell and the bell on the left is my B bell. And other techniques would be plucking. So plucking, you leave the bell on the table and you just pick up the clapper and throw it down. And so that gives a really staccato sound. And the composer, whoever wrote or whoever wrote the music tells you what technique to use. There's something called vibrato. You've heard singers vibrato. So, vibrato for bells is just after you ring it, you go back and forth, or there's gyrate. There's something called swing, where you swing and then you want to point the bell down to the ground. That breaks the sound, so you get this kind of Doppler effect. There's what's called martellato. I'm not going to do it here. You need like a 2-inch foam pad. But in martellato, you would play, just basically bang the bell into the cushion. Then there's the martellato lift, where you bang it and lift it up. There's something called echo. So I'm going to ring the bell and then just lightly touch it, so you get kind of an echo sound. And then we've got mallets. So I can play a suspended bell with mallets. You have to get creative if you're going to play for more than one. Or most of the time, we play mallets with the bells on the table. And then there's several other techniques, but you get the drift. You can really make the bells sound like all sorts of different instruments. We also have chimes, and chimes is where the clapper's on the outside versus the inside. And chimes are good for beginners or kids, because they must be made out of aluminum, but you don't have to wear gloves. And they have, a completely different sound. And we're actually, one of the pieces we're rehearsing for December, we play both bells and chimes at the same time. And one of the first things I learned is, if there's a wrong bell played, which is usually pretty obvious, you're supposed to look at your neighbor and, you played the wrong bell. Well, it's usually me. You're supposed to look at somebody else and say, "Did you play the wrong bell?" And not admit to it. So at the end of rehearsal then, obviously it's not easy to transport 60 bells, because we need bells, we need foam pads, we need the tablecloths over it, we have what we call risers that lift up our music notebooks. So it usually takes one van just to transport all the bells, tables, pads, equipment, and then the people get the smaller van. At the end of rehearsal, then we're supposed to polish the bells, keep them nice and clean, and I usually do that while other people walk back and forth and put the bells away. And once a year we have a polishing party where we polish all the bells. Okay. I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
Barbara, it looks like that those bells is your workout.
Well, it is. So it's like, okay, I may not be going to the pool, but at least for an hour and a half on Monday evenings, I do get my exercise. And one thing that's important is beforehand, really stretch out the wrists and the shoulders. Over the years, we've had a number of people that had to leave the choir because of shoulder. shoulder injuries, carpal tunnel, things like that. So you have to keep on top of your wrist. And I do wear this little elastic glove on my right hand. Between crutches and bells, uh, I have to really stay on top of my wrist.
I have another question if it's okay.
Yeah.
I used hand controls all my life since when I was 18. And
Yeah.
as involved as what you were describing, what you have to go through.
Yeah.
Did somebody recommend that particular type of hand control that's electronic as
Yes.
opposed to just doing, pull to go, and push to stop?
Yes. I bought the van at Custom Mobility in Athens, and
Mhm.
the salesperson is a polio survivor himself,
Oh,
and he he's no longer there, but he had hand controls, and he just said, "This is the one you want." And I said, "Really? Don't you think I should try them all?" He said, "You can try them, but this is the one you need to get." And when I did the evaluation with the occupational therapist, the hand controls on her car, like if you rent a car from Hertz and you ask for hand controls, they'll just put on the mechanical hand controls. And I had a really hard time uh, pushing the accelerator on the mechanical hand control.
how did you do it? Did you pull it or push it to accelerate?
Um, I think the one I did, I had to push down, but it was 5 years ago, and after went through that, I thought there's no way I can handle that type of hand controls.
I have
So,
a friend who recently is transitioning to the ramp van with the hand controls, and I took her out one time just in the neighborhood here in the neighborhood without, no traffic. And her hand control was a little bit different than mine. But she went to the Abilities Expo and they gave her all, where she has to go, what she has to do. Did it take you, and she's 70 something, mid 70s, and I was just wondering if it took you a long time to get accustomed to driving with your hands rather than your feet.
uh, well, a couple things on that. I was only driving with my left leg, and I was having such trouble
Mhm.
that it was really a relief to have the hand controls. To tell you well, it took me a couple days just to get used to this is stop and this is go. And uh, I would drive around the neighborhood and it's like, oh, stop sign, and then all of a sudden I'm speeding up. That's not what I want to do. So it took me a couple days. It's like rubbing your tummy and patting your head. What the biggest thing I had trouble remembering is pushing the button to activate the hand controls. The the activation button is right below the starter to the car. There's no reason to forget that. And what I have, there's a little blue light that flashes, and if you don't push that button like within 8 seconds, it even beeps. But I wasn't paying any attention to that, just wondering I wonder what that beep is. And usually what would happen is when I would put the car in reverse, it would just back up. Well, I was parked usually on a little slant, no problem. But then when I wanted to go, it wouldn't go. And it's like, what's going on here? But once I remembered to activate the controls, then things went pretty good.
See, with the controls that I've been using forever, there's nothing to activate if you.
Right. If it's a mechanical device, you don't have to activate, and that's, that's nice.
Well,
But like I said, if I wanted to, I could accelerate the car with my little pinky.
wow.
So it's a lot less energy draining.
And I actually think that driving with hand controls is a little bit safer because you don't have that
Oh, yeah.
delay between accelerating with your foot and then moving your foot over
Yeah.
to.
And I was moving my leg with my hand so that I
Yeah.
always made sure I had extra space. You know, knock on wood, I never had a crash, but I was getting old and slowing down.
By the way, if you don't mind me asking, what did that electronic hand control cost?
You
About.
know, because I bought that with the van.
Oh, okay.
Now the van was used. I bought the van in 2018. It was a 2017 Chrysler Pacifica van, and it had all the bells and whistles. Silly me, when I was looking at vans, I thought, I don't need all those bells and whistles. I was a Girl Scout. I can rough it. And I borrowed a van, just a real basic van, no navigation, no this and no that. And it's like, this is ridiculous. So I turned that van in. I said, okay, I need the bells and whistles. So I've got the navigation system. I've got the captain. I have captain seats, and the driver's captain seat has the ability to rotate all the way around. I mean, right now, what I do, I back the scooter in and I stand up, and I can take the 2 steps to sit in the driver's seat. But I'm sure there'll come a day where I won't be able to do that. So the seat turns around, and able to adjust the driver's seat a lot more. And there's,
Does your scooter lock down?
yes. Anyway, what I was going to tell, I'll get you answer that question in a minute. So I 2017 van, 1 year old, 17,000 miles on a previous owner passed away. Had the ramp, had the VMI ramp I wanted, which is more expensive than the Braun ramp. And that was $60,000 total. Van, hand controls. I think the hand controls maybe were a couple thousand, but don't quote me on that. I don't remember.
I was just wondering what, because I know the one that I've got, it's only, it's like $500-600 kind of.
Yeah, it'd be a lot more than that. But and then for my scooter, there's of course the middle seat's taken out, and then there's a clamp mechanism.
Easy lock.
Yeah, so I back it into, I attempt to back into it and end up in the trough, and then I push the button, and the sides squeeze the rear tires.
Oh, little different. Maybe that's how they do that.
It's for scooters. It's you can't interchange wheelchair. Like if I end up in a wheelchair, I will need to have that taken out and put in a wheelchair
Gotcha.
anchor or something like that.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for answering.
Oh, you're welcome.
I've been in that, doing that, almost.
Well, it was a lot more involved than I ever imagined.
Right.
But I mean, like I said, I should have done it years before.
Yes, that's what we thought when we got our ramp van after a head-on collision. It became our V8 moment, like, I should have done this a while ago.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
We have some things in common. I was born in Colón, Panama. My father was an explorer. And my mother used to take me every day to sunbathe on the equator.
Mm.
Remember the city, I think I was in Cologne, but I enjoyed that. And I was a leg pusher for years, and I raced cars and everything. I pushed my right leg up to get on the accelerator. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to know, I've never seen one that has the clamps on the wheels, but why are you backing in? Because that much
It's
easier to back
it's
out than
it's what I was told, and now I mean it's the only way I've done it. So uh, that it's safer to back up a ramp than to back down a ramp.
Huh.
well, that could be true, but question is why, what sort of contortion do you have to do to spin around if you were
Oh,
see?
well, I have figured out that I need to be about three inches from the door. So when I start to back up, I just need to look over my right shoulder. And then but if I start to back up and I'm rubbing against the sliding door, I'm in the wrong place. Or if I back up the the roof for some reason is lower on the left side. If I start to back up and my crutches, because my crutches are uh, behind my seat in the scooter, if my crutches hit the roof, I know I'm too far to the left. But there have been many times I get in and I'll just take a look around, and I always go over to my right. I probably should alternate just to get equally stretched out.
How do you, I'm thinking about, since, does the driver's seat articulate too or not?
Yes, she has a
Yeah,
trans.
yes, but I don't use that component right now. Once I get locked into place, then I lift up my scooter uh,
Um,
armrest. I have to put down the driver's armrest because I grab onto that
Okay, so that's how you do it.
and I push up, hang onto the scooter wheel, push
Okay,
up with that, and then it's just a couple side steps and I could sit down.
okay, that's what I was wondering what you were using. I thought maybe you might have had a stanchion of some sort that would stabilize you while you made that turn.
No, I
Okay,
just once I'm up, I'm pretty good.
got it.
It's the transition that
You have
is,
a narrow space to wiggle through.
yeah. Well, let's see. At the beginning of the pandemic, I thought I want to lose 5 pounds. Well, I only have 10 pounds to go. So, and I think it's like, okay, well, I'm not walking as much. I'm wearing now a long leg brace on my left leg. Got that a couple years ago. And so it's like, why am I gaining weight? I'm not changing my eating habits, but my activity level has really gone down. And it's like, okay, I guess I need to not eat as much. So,
I have a question. What,
yeah.
how did you decide to learn how to do the bells, and how long did it take you to learn it? Because it seems
Well,
quite complex.
it, yeah, when I'm sitting here trying to explain it, it's like, I can't believe I know it. I actually played for a couple years when I was 10 years old.
Oh,
And so a lot of choirs, a lot of churches have youth choirs. We used to have a youth choir at the church I go to now, but the pandemic, it fizzled out with the pandemic. But I had, what you really need to know is how to read music because you need to, and count like crazy. Because if maybe you're going to play on the end of two, so you need to uh, be able to do those two things. And one thing that was good about the pandemic, uh, because we wore masks. I still wear a mask in church. You're not supposed to count using your lips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But with a mask, nobody can tell. And so that makes it, and then it's like the director's always saying, look up, look up. The director wants us to look at him. Well, yeah, that's important, but it's like I just lost my place in my music. And of the 13 people in the choir, I say 9 of us are retired and wear bifocals, so it's a bit challenging. But so I already knew how to read music because I was taking piano lessons since I was 5, and then we must have played real simple pieces. And when I was in a position and I got a job where I had weekends off, then I was able to go to the bell rehearsal and play in the church service. And there's bell conferences, they're called festivals. And the first festival I went to was at UC Berkeley. There were 1,100 bell ringers. And so we had gotten music ahead of time. And there's different levels of music. Level 1 is the most basic that you would have kids or really new people play. And we play mostly level 3, 3 plus, goes up to 6. Like that's beyond my capability. And as you play each piece and there's a new notation, then hopefully the director knows how to show you that maneuver. And nowadays with YouTube, you can look up anything on YouTube. But if you really want to hear a fabulous professional bell ringers, go to YouTube and look up anything that the Raleigh ringers. This is Raleigh, as in Raleigh, North Carolina. They are unbelievable. I don't know if you know the piece, Flight of the Bumblebee. They play Flight of the Bumblebee in costume. So, but and I just looked at some of the pieces. I just looked this morning. They play Bohemian Rhapsody. Like who can play that anyway?
Yeah. Maureen?
Yeah. Anyway, it's check them out on YouTube. But I didn't learn it all at once. It was one thing at a time.
Go ahead,
I
Jeanette.
also had a question. How
Wait,
did you
it
get to
was
be
Maureen's
selected for
turn.
polio?
Yeah.
Polio, the poster polio.
You know, I don't know. You know, I was 3, so
Because you were with the governor, that's pretty important. Must
it was the March of Dimes paid for my hospitalization, so my parents got hooked up with March of Dimes,
oh.
and I think they said, "Oh, you've got a cute kid; she'll do."
I know you were really cute.
Yeah, what happened?
And she still is.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Maureen, do you have a question?
Joel does. Thank
Oh, I
you.
thought you had a question. Let me ask you something. What did you do with your wheelchair when you had to go into the bell ringing situation? I can't think possibly of
Well,
that at the end.
what I do is I ride my scooter into the sanctuary and I park it off to the side. Now, have a little issue with where we play because there's 3 steps up to where we play. So there's 2 steps and then 1 more step.
Oh,
And so I take my time. The steps aren't big. I can manage them. I've got my crutches. And then you usually we play two pieces in each service. And after the first piece, everybody goes sits down. Well, I have a stool and I just sit at my position until we play again.
Okay.
In our rehearsal room, there's no steps. There's just those three annoying steps. And a friend of mine actually looked at trying to get the church to make a ramp up there, but it would block a fire exit, so it's not going to happen. So far, I'm able to do it. I suppose that if there ever comes a day I can't make it up those steps, they could give me a little table and I can play, down, down below. The problem is, like I play C sharp. Well, my neighbor plays D flat, which is the same bell. And so we do share bells. But fortunately, we have a backup set of bells, so we can pull out an extra bell if we need to separate positions.
How do you get the sharp out of the same bell?
B flat is also A sharp.
Okay.
And then we're rehearsing a piece now that has a double B flat. Like, who does that? A double B flat is actually A, the A tone.
Okay.
And
Anybody? Yeah,
anyway,
anybody else have questions? No?
Oh, am I muted? The
Oh,
B,
you're fine.
okay, what was the place? Now I put my notes down. You said you got your van, a BMI ramp? What's that called?
V.
BMI? Who is that? What does that stand for?
That's the name of the company, VMI. I don't know.
Do they just do the ramps or you got it?
The ramp is an in-floor ramp.
Okay.
And so the Braun ramp folds up
Ooh.
and so it's on top of the floor, folded up, and it blocks the sliding door.
Hmm.
Now, the good news with the Braun ramp is if you have a problem with power, it's easier to deploy or put it back in manually. The VMI ramp, if somehow you lose battery, then you have to get out this little tool. It kind of looks like the lever to a jack of a car, but you've got to move the scooter, you've got to take off this little panel, you got to put this in that has a gear thing and hook it to the gear underneath. And my husband has done that where he's deployed the ramp manually. I suppose in a pinch I could do it, but I really would have to have a lot of flowing epinephrine to get that to work. But I wanted something because, again, 5 years ago, my grandkids were, 7 and 9, and I was afraid, I just I didn't like it as much.
Anybody else? I have a question. Where do you get your braces made?
At C.H. Martin and Swanee with Jeff,
Okay.
I went through 7 orthotists when I moved here to find someone who finally listened to me.
Yes, that's the problem I'm having. Okay.
And Jeff, when we did the web launch back in whenever that was, 15, he was the orthotist that was on the panel that we had. And it's like, if this guy will give up his Saturday to come talk to our group, he seemed like a good guy. And I basically took my old brace, which was 25 years old. I said, this is falling apart, but I want one just like it. And he came within 85% of just like it, which was far better than anybody else had done.
So he custom made it. Yeah.
And he does it at his shop in Swanee. He doesn't send it off to
Yeah, like they
Timbuktu.
used to do when we were kids. Yeah.
And he's training his son to take over. So,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
bless you. So
Wow. Okay.
hopefully that business will be around for as long as I need it.
Mm-hmm. What's his name?
His name is Jeff.
Jeff.
Now there's Jeff and there's Jeffrey. So you just have to specify which one you want.
Okay.
He works mostly with pediatric patients, but he will make, he can bend metal or whatever he does. He does, and I only had to go back for one adjustment with my new brace. One. I mean, my previous braces is like, well, this is adjustment number 6. So,
Okay.
so
The lady from Quebec. I did. Yes.
Hi, I would just like to know where I can get your book, Barbara.
my book,
Yeah.
I don't have a book, but the articles, I have articles, I have 2 articles in the APPA News. One talks about, my polio background. And this is January to March 2021, volume 34, issue 1. So you should be able to find that on the website. And my travels through Europe is summer 2018,
Mhm.
volume 31, issue 2.
Oh, you mentioned you like to watch Rick Steves' Adventures in Europe.
Yeah.
Who is that? These on YouTube videos or something? Or
Oh, on PBS. I'm sure he's
Oh.
on YouTube, but I watch him.
is he using a wheelchair or something, or just
No,
oh, it's just to enjoy
he
travel?
does nothing with ability.
Okay.
Where he goes, you got to be able to walk and walk very well.
That's why we watch it online. Okay.
But he goes places that I would never be able to get to.
Can you send me your PowerPoint? I'll put this one in the APPA News too, which is almost done. The next APPA News.
Okay.
I'll just pull a few slides. Okay.
Yeah.
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 You have
I'll-
my email, I think, right?
I'll try to do that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Be happy to.
See, we'll work on your books little by
Oh,
little.
yeah.
Yeah, you should have a memoir type
Oh,
project going. Yeah, it really, to me, this has been a real inspiration. I mean, you have this disability and you've overcome things and, your good attitude in life and your good career.
well,
Now you're bell ringing and I mean, it's unbelievable, I feel.
well, I've always, and I can credit my parents. It's like, okay, you have a disability. Now go clean your room. Go wash the dishes. In fact, I had to mow the lawn because my brother said he had hay fever. I still don't know if he really did or not. But, it was just, I was never pampered and I was always expected to take care of myself. And like I said, plus I started out as a stubborn young goat. Now I'm a stubborn old goat. Like most of us, don't tell me I can't do something, because I'm going to do it.
Hmm.
But I think too, staying active, staying connected, whether it's through work, APPA, social activities, friends, family, uh, and and taking care of ourselves, good nutrition, staying as active as possible, keep the brain cells working, uh, and 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 have lots of gratitude. Because I'll tell you, Thursday, I called. I only had to call 4 cancer patients, and they were all younger than me
Hmm.
with really bad diagnosis.
Mm.
So it's like, okay, I have no problems.
Joel
Yeah.
has a question.
Yeah,
May I ask you one more question?
yeah.
Uh, what is the difficulty factor difference between your, I want to call it good leg, right leg, and your left leg, which is
Well, my right leg has always been my bad leg because it was completely paralyzed. I can lift my foot up a little bit, but and then my left leg was my good leg, but now my good leg's my second bad leg. I figured when I recovered from polio, I regained about 85% of the strength in my left leg. So, I would get tired, and I would need to hang onto the handrail to go up or down stairs. But, uh, I could do that. I seldom use my crutches. Uh, and I think I lost 1 to 2% strength in my left leg from about the age of 20 or so. And so, at 85%, well, then 84 isn't that bad. And then 82's, still pretty good. But, when you get down to 25%, 1 or 2% makes a big difference.
well,
So, uh,
that would make, and maybe I missed something because I was in the other room during the beginning of your conversation, but if you went to a microfiber reinforced brace, it's almost weightless.
I know, I thought about that a lot. That's as far as it's gotten. When I haven't done that.
Well, that leg is like having no legs if you let it go too far.
Right.
Okay, I just thought because microfiber is the thing today, and your guys should have no problem with that.
Well, actually, with the my left leg brace, I have microfiber on the bottom half.
But not on the
Uh,
heavy.
Not on the top half. My problem with my left leg is my knee started to bend backwards,
Yep,
We've come
rock
out.
bottom. Me too.
It's happened in my-
and it's like, really? Are you kidding me? Haven't I lived through enough? But anyway, the orthotist recommended metal on top, and
Well,
I mean it's mostly plastic on top and just a little bit of metal.
well, I had the same problem, so I designed a multi-fit pin to go in the brace, depending upon how he had to adjust it to make up
The
for
knee joint.
the knee joint for recavatum, because recavatum is your friend as long as you keep it back to tilt point, just in back.
Yes,
And if he had a plate there with a little holes bored in it, he could adjust that to you perfectly. That enabled me to avoid, because when I guess 20 years ago, I noticed just walking up to my office up a driveway, I started to have pain in the back.
yeah. Well, I've got a leather strap, right, that it keeps my knee from going backwards, and I can adjust the leather strap. So that's what you mean. But what I wanted to say, when I worked as a nurse, I worked on a surgical floor, and I would walk into the room and I would get a report, oh, this patient doesn't want to get out of bed. And I would walk in the room and I said, "You have a problem with getting out of bed?" And they stand there and look at their nurse wearing a leg brace. And it's like, no. I said, "Okay, then let's get up." And fortunately, every staff I worked with over the 40 years, I obviously I couldn't lift patients like everybody else, but people were very helpful. I got to be really good at starting IVs, so I would start IVs and other people would lift my patients.
Nice, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions from people?
This has been wonderful, Barbara.
Oh, I'm glad because I thought, what the heck am I going to talk about?
I know this has been wonderful.
Well, we are as I've coined the phrase now, we are really the mothers of invention and the fathers of invention.
Absolutely.
If we can see it, we can do it.
Right.
It's all of a sudden, it's so quick in our brain how to do something. If somebody, oh, you can't do that. And like, as soon as somebody says you can't do that,
Oh, yeah.
juices start running. And
Well, we wouldn't have made it this far if we didn't think like that.
that's right. Exactly. So what a wonderful story, Barbara. Thank you for sharing. And
Thank you for having me.
whoever it was who asked her to do this.
Oh, it was Rita. It's been on Rita's back burner for a while.
I know it has. I didn't know it was going to be this good. I mean, I knew you were going to do a good job, but this really is outstanding. I feel from 0 to 10, it was 10 plus. I mean, it was
well,
just
thank you.
loaded. Yeah. Anyway, I have a few announcements. November 28th is Georgia Gives. So when you get